Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. The Valley of the End. With a waterfall serving as a border between the two lands, the valley is memorialized with two giant statues of the main legendary combatants, Hashirama Senju on the Land of Fire's side of the waterfall and Madara Uchiha on the opposite side to symbolize his defection from their village. The statues are posed to make the traditional shinobi sparring seal of confrontation, which is protocol before a duel. It has some land around a giant lake, but the valley is now heavily damaged to the point of almost none recognition due to a new fight that is approaching its final stages. In the sky above the Valley of the End, two new individuals are fighting. The first is Naruto Uzumaki, age 17 and he is 5 feet 5 inches, the village pariah turned hero after all his trials as a shinobi. He is currently in his 6 paths sage mode. His body is coated in yellow chakra. A sort of circular design is featured prominently over his stomach. The whisker-like markings on his face become thicker. 6 Magatama markings are present on or around his collar. Various other dark designs appear along his body, sometimes densely enough to give the appearance that he's wearing a body suit beneath the yellow coat. A pattern consisting of a Rinnegan-like marking above 9 Magatama also appears on his back. His eyes are yellow while his pupils maintain the cross of vertical fox slits with horizontal toed slats there with no pigmentation around his eyes. His skin does not glow along with the rest of his slightly damaged outfit. He also wears a Konoha Hitai 8. The second is Sasuke Uchiha, age 17 and he is 5 feet 6 inches, the last of the Uchiha clan and a Rouge ninja. He has spiky black hair with a blue tint and hair has hung over his face as bangs. He is wearing a gray zippered, high-collared, short-sleeved shirt with the symbol of his clan, blue wrist warmers, and dark blue pants, over which hangs a blue cloth that covers him from his stomach to his knees, which he secures with a purple rope belt. Though the outfit is slightly damaged. His right eye is his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan while his left eye is a Rinnegan that contains 3 tomo on its 2 innermost circles for a total of 6. Sasuke wants to start a revolution where he kills the current 5 Kage and become the individual who will shoulder all of the world's problems alone, while Naruto wants to stop Sasuke's plan for a revolution that would result in Sasuke being alone for potentially all eternity. Both are inside of their own creations of chakra titans. Naruto through the use of shadow clones combined 3 Kurama avatars into a single construct with 3 faces and 6 arms, which is called the Asura Kurama mode, preparing his strongest jutsu yet. In its right arms coated in yellow chakra, creating a 6 paths big ball Rasenshuriken, Rakudo Odama Rasenshuriken, and in its left arms, it creates a tailed beast ball Rasenshuriken, Bijudama Rasenshuriken, both infused with natural energy. This jutsu is called Rakudo, Chudama Rasenshuriken, 6 paths, Ultra Big Ball Rasenshuriken. Sasuke through drawing on the power of the bijus, the armor of the complete body, Susanoo form is reduced somewhat, exposing the humanoid within covered in lightning called the Indra Susanoo. Sasuke creates a longbow and arrow that are infused with lightning-natured chakra. This jutsu is called Indora no Ya, Indra's arrow. You finally decided to kill me, huh? Sasuke says to Naruto preparing his jutsu. We've taken on a lot of responsibilities upon our shoulders, Naruto begins to say while remembering his first spar with Sasuke at the Konoha Ninja Academy. But you see, now remembering how Sasuke wanted to fight him during the Chunin exams preliminaries. I wanna fight, and win against you fair and square. Naruto says with growing conviction and slight anger while Sasuke not saying anything looks uninterested in this. But, not against the current you. But you already know that too, right Sasuke? Naruto concludes finally launching his Rakudo, Chudama Rasenshuriken, 6 paths, Ultra Big Ball Rasenshuriken. Sasuke still says nothing and finally launches the giant lightning arrow against Naruto's jutsu. This fight with you right now will be my last. Sasuke begins thinking as time between the clash of the two jutsus slows. Indora no Ya, Indra's arrow, currently the most powerful jutsu in my arsenal, so just die. Just be gone already. Sasuke concludes to think as the jutsus collide with each other, creating a massive explosion that results a blinding light. The result of these two unrivaled jutsus causes a terrain-altering catastrophe that destroys the land and almost everything around it, or at least in one perspective it was supposed to. Question mark. Falling from the sky, the purple chakra of Sasuke's Susanoo and the Naruto's Biju mode come closer and closer to the ground while slowly dissipating until they both fall to the ground with dust covering them up. When the dust clears, it shows Sasuke, who lost the blue cloth that covers him from his stomach to his knees along with the purple rope belt, and his gray shirt is damaged a bit. He coughs once and with his right arm slowly pushes himself up using his arms and legs for support. He is panting, seemingly close to exhaustion, but is running on adrenaline now. But when the dust clears across from Sasuke, Naruto appears, who is no longer clad in his chakra with his normal but damaged appearance exposed, yellow-blonde, spiky hair and blue eyes, as well as his 3 whisker markings on his cheeks returning to their normal line state. Naruto's wears elbow-length mesh armor, orange pants, and his Konoha Hitai 8 is black in color. He has his right knee and right hand on the ground, while his left foot is on the ground and his left arm resting on his left leg for support. He is panting, seemingly close to exhaustion, but is running on adrenaline now. Damn it, Sasuke starts to say as he stands up, "You're not." Naruto says nothing as he makes his cross-fingered hand sign. Naruto. He pauses as he hears a gruff, but slightly worried voice and get pulled into his mindscape. Naruto's mindscape. We now see the yin version of Kurama, or more commonly known as the Kyuubi. He is a giant kitsune with 9 long swiping tails. He has dark orange, almost brown-colored fur with black fur around its eyes that stretches to its ears, red irises with black slits for pupils, and the upper body structure of a human, complete with opposable thumbs on its clawed hands. If my nature energy didn't make it to you in time, you'd have been blown away just now. Kurama begins to tell Naruto. And your chakra has already been drained from, he continues, but is interrupted by the outside fight. Question mark. Amaterasu. Sasuke says, as his left eye bleeds a bit as black fire sudden appears, seeming engulfing the right arm Naruto used to defend his face. But Kurama's chakra covered Naruto's arm just in time, then separated from Naruto's arm onto the ground, and Naruto begins to move closer to Sasuke. Only a diversion, huh? I can't actually take him down with this, Sasuke begins to think as he brings his hands together. I need the bijus. As Sasuke thinks this, his left eye suddenly gets assaulted by a pulse of pain and grabs the left side of his face with his left hand. I've used too much chakra, can't maintain control. Sasuke grits his teeth trying to fight the pain. At this rate, I can't use my left eye's abilities either. As Sasuke is forced to keep his left eye shut. After hearing a splash of water, Sasuke gets alerted to Naruto's presence once again, as his right eye's Sharingan had already shifted to its original 3-tomo state, and while it looked like Naruto was going to punch him, but suddenly Sasuke got kicked upward by another Naruto. Then 2 more Narutos appeared from smoke and kicked Sasuke a bit more. Then as that one Naruto that was going to punch him, Sasuke's Sharingan was able to read Naruto's movement, and while Sasuke did get punched in the face, his arm slammed into Naruto's face, resulting in them getting sent to the ground. Sasuke then removed the blue wrist warmer on his right arm to reveal a seal. He activates it and 3 shuriken appear. Then by grabbing them he infuses them with lightning chakra, and as he rolls on the ground he throws them at 3 Narutos, paralyzing them. Sasuke then charges in with a Chidori covering his left hand at the 3 Narutos in front of him, and 2 of them poofed away while the third one stayed in one piece, signifying that this might be the real Naruto, and this Naruto grabbed his arm holding him in place. Then to Sasuke's surprise, the 4th Naruto that was behind him runs to him and gets punched. Afterwards the Naruto that Sasuke attacked got poofed away as well, showing that it was a fake. And Sasuke hits the ground a few times before stabilizing himself. Naruto pants in exhaustion, but despite this he still creates a Rasengan in his right hand and runs toward Sasuke. Sasuke's right eye then turns black-colored, showing his Sharingan had deactivated and his Chidori had stopped working as Sasuke looked panicked. However, fatigue managed to catch up to Naruto and caused him to trip, sending his Rasengan into the ground, making a hole in it. Taking the opportunity, Sasuke kicked Naruto in the face, and once Naruto was on his back, Sasuke sat on Naruto's chest to make sure he didn't get up. Naruto puts a hand on Sasuke's face to stop him, but that didn't stop Sasuke from punching him like crazy as Naruto tires to defend as Naruto's left eye begins to swell. Naruto then grabs Sasuke's shirt to give him a headbutt, which causes Sasuke to get up, and then Naruto kicks Sasuke in the chest. Naruto slowly gets up and walks towards Sasuke, while Sasuke, who was his back, slowly pushes himself backwards. He's still not. Sasuke thinks in growing frustration. "Give up already," says exhaustingly as he gets up and runs toward Naruto, while Naruto just takes a deep breath and runs towards Sasuke. Sasuke, Naruto, both yell at the same time as they punch each other. They keep punching each other as blood spills out of them in varying degrees, adding a couple of kicks in as well as they both scream. This pattern of fighting continues even at dusk, when Naruto and Sasuke keep fighting, barely able to stand, or even land hits on one another, and even if contact is made the attacks are weak. Now Naruto just keeps his fist on Sasuke's head while Sasuke just keeps his fist on Naruto's stomach, both panting in exhaustion as both of them fall on their knees and Naruto's Konoha Hitai 8 falls on the ground. Naruto's mindscape. "Hang in there," Kurama says while keeping his hands together. "It's not much, but I've finished infusing some more chakra." Kurama continues, but he notices something amiss. The fist Sasuke has on Naruto's stomach starts absorbing some of Kurama's chakra. This is one of the abilities of the Rinnegan. As someone who possesses the eyes of the Uchiha, as Sasuke tells this to Naruto, struggles to stand straight and eventually falls on his arms and knees. "My victory is inevitable." Sasuke now stands up. Now, he thinks as he holds his left arm to use the Chidori again. "Now, I can finally be alone." As he stands over Naruto's panting form. "Farewell," he begins to say as the Sharingan in his right eye reactivates. "My one and only friend," Sasuke finishes saying as he begins to strike Naruto down with his Chidori. As the lightning jutsu approaches him, Naruto looks at his Konoha Hitai 8 and see a reflection and quickly looks towards Sasuke and gets face to face with him, and for a moment Sasuke's right eye twitched in pain and his Sharingan deactivated once again. At that moment Naruto gets his second wind, gives Sasuke an uppercut with his left fist, resulting in Sasuke getting punched into a wall of rock with dust blocking his vision. Naruto bends down for a moment to recuperate. Naruto's mindscape. "That was a great counter. You didn't miss the fact that his visual prowess is weakened." Kurama praises Naruto on his counterattack. Naruto says nothing as he picks up his Konoha Hitai 8 off the ground and holds onto it in his left hand as he looks at the hole he punched Sasuke into. Sasuke puts his right hand on the edge of the hole waiting to get out. Over and 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 over again. Sasuke says each time with growing frustration and anger, and slams his fist against the wall a few times. "Just give up and let me cut you down," Sasuke screams. While Naruto gives one small out-of-breath laugh, he says, "Can't do that." While Sasuke looks angered and confused, Naruto finishes by saying, "'Cause I'm your one and only friend." Almost smugly. Which angers Sasuke for a moment until he takes a deep breath and reactivates the Sharingan in his right eye and creates a vicious-looking Chidori in his left hand. Naruto's mindscape. I figured as much, Kurama begins saying. He's assimilated the chakra I created and infused for you, and made it his own. Looking outside the mindscape for a moment, Kurama says, he is gathering all the chakra he can into that jutsu. He intends to finish this with one last blast. Kurama concludes assessing the situation. Listen, I'm giving you what remains of my own chakra. Kurama begins saying his final advice and plan to Naruto for a while as Naruto turns to look at him. Once I do that, it's going to put me to sleep. Don't unleash your jutsu until the last minute, so he doesn't absorb more chakra from you. Well, not that he can use his newly awakened Rinnegan to absorb chakra while putting out his own jutsu. Kurama then gets a bit stunned as Naruto says nothing, holding out his left arm in a fist and looking at him, a smirk of silent confidence. Kurama closes his eyes for a moment and then gives a grin as he uses his right arm and gives Naruto a fist bump for a few seconds. Then Naruto begins to walk away. Kurama's flashback. Who are you to be so confident when you couldn't even save Sasuke? Says the young version of Kurama who had red-orange fur and was filled with anger. I've never given up, Naruto begins to say while directly look at Kurama's eyeball. Once you give up, it's over. I will save Sasuke, and I'm coming after all that hate inside you too, someday. Naruto finishes with a smile. Flashback over. As Naruto leaves the mindscape, Kurama's last thoughts before his sleep are, now go, you're the one and only for us too. His thoughts slow as he closes his eyes. That's why Sasuke is, ? Naruto and Sasuke just stare at each other waiting for the moment of their final clash. As a leaf slowly makes its descent into the water between the two fighters. As soon as the leaf hits the water, Naruto and Sasuke jump towards each other, Sasuke going downward and Naruto going upward. As Naruto makes a Rasengan in his right hand, he feels the hands of everyone who supported him to help him form this Rasengan. As Naruto and Sasuke are waiting to clash, they see their progression as shinobi from kids at the academy till now while screaming until their jutsus clash once again, creating a blinding light as Sasuke thinks many things from the past. Naruto, from their first fight in the Valley of the End. Just disappear already, from their first reunion in 3 years since his defection. And take our bond along with you. From their clash some point after killing Danzo to their current clash and final clash. Possibly purgatory. An academy, Sasuke wins a spar with an academy Naruto with Iruka telling them to make the unison sign, and with anger-filled glares the two kids begin to fight each other. Then the image stops and turns black and white. As the two older versions of Naruto and Sasuke with his black eyes completely uninjured and clothes undamaged watch in the third person. What is this? Sasuke asks while Naruto just glances at him and remains silent. Now it shows when Sasuke and Naruto talk to each other sometime after Danzo's death and his fight with Kakashi. Sasuke, past Naruto speaks. If you and I fight, we'll both die. Now it shows the current Naruto and Sasuke at their old training ground where the bell test was conducted. Am I dead? Sasuke asks out loud, having a melancholy expression. Now it shows them in Haku's Makio Hyosho, demonic mirroring ice crystals. This sensation. Naruto starts talking, then it shifts to the hotel where Naruto first encountered Itachi and Kisame. It must be. Then it shifts to the roof of the Konoha hospital where the water containers were struck by their Chidori and Rasengan respectively, probably. Also having a melancholy expression. Sasuke then walks and Naruto follows to the top of a random building in Konoha with everything looking dark and depressing. Pitiful, isn't it? Sasuke asks, but Naruto gets confused and then he looks down. They see a bunch dark shadows in the shape of people surrounding an Academy Sasuke and an Academy Naruto. You had the Kyuubi, and I was an Uchiha. We were ostracized from the village and treated like outcasts. Sasuke says. Then suddenly the older Naruto and Sasuke got transferred in that circle. And we represented the village and its people. Right. As Sasuke finished saying this, the young Naruto screamed and ran through the shadows, and the young Sasuke said, "I won't let you say I'm wrong." As Naruto just looks at the young Sasuke, the back at the real Sasuke. You called me your brother. In that sense, perhaps we were. Sasuke says to Naruto. Now it shows them on a lake in Konoha during a sunset. You're totally wrong. Damn it. You don't understand, do you? Naruto tells Sasuke as he slaps him in the chest, then runs upwards, and suddenly he turns into his academy self while Sasuke looks on and a young Sasuke looks at the lake. Now it shows the academy Naruto swinging on the tree swing near the academy, then turning into his 13-year-old self, up to his current 17-year-old self as Sasuke approaches him. Sorry, Grandma Tsunade, I promised I wouldn't die until I became the Hokage, Naruto says out loud, looking sad. Sasuke then looks at the Hokage rock showing the faces of the 5 Hokages. Suddenly Naruto stands up and panics. Oh yeah, the Mugen Tsukuyomi, Infinite Tsukuyomi. This is bad. The release jutsu can't be activated without us there, right? He says in panic. You're dead, and you're worried about what happens to the world. Sasuke asks Naruto. Of course. We can't leave it like that. Naruto replies. Sakura and Kakashi still remain. They'll figure something out. Sasuke counters. I hope so, says Naruto as he sits down again. Naruto then grabs his chest and looks to be in pain. Naruto. Sasuke says, a bit worried, and everything turns black for a moment and then Naruto has disappeared. Sasuke looks left and right to see if anything happened and he looks back to the Hokage rock. The Hokage, Suddenly an Academy Sasuke was getting a piggyback ride by a younger Itachi Uchiha who is wearing black shirt with the Uchiha clan symbol on the back, bandages around his ankles, and black sandals and wore tan pants. Itachi carried the young Sasuke to the village with only 4 faces on the Hokage rock. Pretty soon, big brother, they might carve your great stone face over there. The young Sasuke says. Suddenly Itachi stops and the background becomes darker and then the blackout happens again. This time Itachi is the one who disappears as the young Sasuke falls on his butt. Big brother. The young Sasuke turns his head left and right trying to find Itachi. Suddenly everything turns red as Sasuke remembers all of the moments when he hated Itachi, from the massacre to their final fight. As Sasuke lays down in the rain after the fight, he remembers Itachi's last living moments. Itachi taking his index and middle fingers and taps Sasuke on the forehead saying with a smile, "Forgive me, Sasuke. This is it." And now Sasuke remembers Itachi's last moments as a reanimated shinobi, giving him a one-armed hug, taping his forehead to Sasuke's, and telling him, "And no matter what you do from here on out, know this, I will love you always." Still laying in the rain, Sasuke closes his eyes and thinks, "Big brother, I'll be seeing you, soon." It is nighttime as Sasuke starts to open his right eye and sees the moon a bit blurry at first. "You've finally come to, says Naruto voice. Sasuke quickly turns to his left to see Naruto next to him, but just as quickly gets a shot of pain through his whole body, realizing both of them are still very much injured and his right eye is black, indicating his Sharingan is no longer active. As you can tell, both our bodies are pretty messed up right now, and if either one of us moves too much we'll probably die of shock. Naruto says as plainly as possibly. Why would you go that far? Why do all that, just to get in my way? Sasuke asks as Naruto remains silent. I gained the power to enter the darkness, and sever all bonds, and naturally, everyone tried to cut their ties with me at some point. Sasuke begins to talk and then turns his head to Naruto and says, but you've never attempted to cut me off. Sasuke's flashback. The only one who can handle all that hatred is me. Naruto said this in the past. Flashback over. Sasuke still looks at Naruto and asks, why do you keep involving yourself with me? Naruto replies by saying, you already know, don't you? Now that your body can't move, your mouth sure is moving a lot. Just answer me, Sasuke says impatiently. Naruto turns his head to the right and says, cause you're my friend. Sasuke's flashback. What is it with you anyway? A 13-year-old Sasuke asks. I'm your friend. A 13-year-old Naruto with red cubey eyes replies. Just what the hell do you want? Why are you so fixated on me? An almost blind 17-year-old Sasuke angrily asks. It's because I'm your friend. A 17-year-old Naruto says calmly. Flashback over. I've heard that before. Sasuke replies. But what exactly does that mean to you anyway? Sasuke questions. Naruto turns his head to see the sky and says, you can ask me to explain it, but I really can't put it into words. He pauses for a moment and continues to say, it's just that, when I see you take on stuff, and get all messed up, it hurts me. Sasuke seems surprised by this. It hurts so much inside, that I can't just leave it alone, Dadbeo, you know. While Naruto keeps talking, Sasuke just pays attention. Though right now, I'm in a lot of pain all over, and I can't do anything about it. Naruto finishes as just says ouch a few times. Until Sasuke and Naruto black out again. Possibly purgatory. Now Sasuke thinks back as he once again sees the academy versions of himself in Naruto, except that Naruto is a good few feet ahead of him. Naruto, I knew you were always alone back then. The village shunned you, just like they did with me, the lone Uchiha survivor. Now Sasuke thinks back to Naruto's moments of attention seeking. You intentionally did stupid things to get scolded, most likely to get people's attention. In the beginning, I thought you were good for nothing. A weakling who just wanted to goof around. But the more I watched you being idiotic and getting scolded over and over, for some reason, it started weighing on my mind. Sasuke continues to think as he is still a few feet behind Naruto. I thought back then, that your weakness was gradually rubbing off on me. Then, every time I'd see you, I'd think about you more and more. Seeing you desperately trying to bond with others, made me remember my family. Sasuke continues to think as he sees a cracked photo of his family for a moment. And I didn't know why, but I felt relief. But at the same time, I considered it a weakness. I trained hard as if to escape that weakness. As Sasuke thinks, this cracks start to appear on Itachi's image in the photo. In order to get my revenge on my brother to become stronger than him. Now Sasuke continues to think as he sees himself at age 13 with Naruto, Sakura, and Kakashi as a team and what they have been through. And yet, I ended up on the same team as you. And I began thinking about my family again. I went on missions with you as you jabbered on and on about becoming Hokage. I say how both of us were getting stronger, and one day, I started to feel the desire to fight you too. And I began to see a shadow of my own family in Squad 7. Now Sasuke just sees the 13-year-old Naruto in black and white, then in color. That's way every time I saw you suffering. That's right, I felt it. I felt pain too. When I understood your pain, I finally saw you as a comrade. But on the other hand, I couldn't leave you alone. You were getting stronger and stronger. Watching you steadily get stronger. The scene changes to when Naruto and Sasuke are 17 and Sasuke was almost blind back then. I knew that you were always alone. I wanted to walk over and start talking. I'd get sort of giddy. But I stopped myself. I was jealous because you were good at everything. So I made you my rival. You've been my goal. I had nothing, and I found a bond. I wanted to be strong and cool like you. That's why I kept chasing after you. Naruto said this to him in the past. It was the opposite. Sasuke was still seeing this as his 13-year-old self. In reality, I was the one was jealous of you. Because you had a strength that I didn't. It now shows Sasuke and the Naruto in front of him growing to their current ages. You were always walking in front of me. Suddenly an image of Itachi appears next to Naruto. Just like my late brother. And, even today, suddenly an image of a reanimation of Itachi in a forest appears. I'll let you deal with Sasuke. Says Itachi as Sasuke gets surprised to hear this. That was my plan from the start. A past Naruto in a chakra mode says to Itachi as Itachi smiles at the reply. Entrusting it to you was the right thing to do, after all. Itachi says to Naruto. These are. Sasuke begins to think after he realizes that this was a conversation Naruto and Itachi had in the past. Naruto's memories. My dream is to surpass the Hokage one day. And that's why I'm going to make everyone acknowledge me. I have to be ready. I'm gonna call the Hokage someone that everyone acknowledges. There's no such thing as a shortcut. Quit messing around. I'll never run away. I will make it. Even if I stay a genin for the rest of my life, I'll become the Hokage. So I don't care Dadbeo. I never go back on my word. That is my ninja way. I'm different from you. I'm absolutely gonna become the Hokage. Becoming the Hokage is my dream. I won't die until I become the Hokage. I'm going to become the Hokage that surpass all the previous ones. That's my dream, you idiot. The Hokage is someone who endures the pain and takes the lead in front of everyone. So a Hokage never walks over his comrades' corpses. There is no shortcut to becoming the Hokage. And there are no ways out for the one who becomes Hokage. No way can a guy who can't even save one friend become the Hokage. Isn't that right, Sasuke? These are all things Naruto has said at different stages of his career as a shinobi. Naruto, how far have you? Sasuke begin to question after seeing all the trials Naruto has been through as a shinobi. No matter how powerful you become, Sasuke gets surprised and quickly turns around to Itachi's voice. Don't try to shoulder everything alone. You share your father's dream, don't you? Then don't ever forget, becoming Hokage doesn't mean people will acknowledge you. But when the people acknowledge you, you can become Hokage. Never forget your friends. This is the advice Itachi gave Naruto in the past as Sasuke next to the image of Naruto hearing it as well. Sasuke starts to look forlorn. Big brother, Sasuke thinks as an academy. Sasuke gets tapped in the forehead by Itachi as he notices Itachi in his Akatsuki uniform across from him, and then it shifts to a 13-year-old Sasuke and Naruto facing each other. As more people stand next to Naruto in the light as he ages to his current point, the distance between them grows further and further away as Sasuke alone in the dark ages to his current point, and now Naruto has everyone he has encountered past to present, dead or alive, allies and former enemies, even his Toad summon and the Biju stand with Naruto as Sasuke remains alone in the dark witnessing it all. Until suddenly an image of himself now stands next to Naruto in the light as well. The original Sasuke in the dark make a face of sad realization and closes his eyes for a moment, unable to look at this. I see. Sasuke begins to say. Then, show me. ? The sun is now starting to rise as Naruto starts to wake up while Sasuke must have woken up a few moments before him. Where are we? Don't tell me this is really heaven this time. Naruto asks in exhausted panic for a moment. Looks like we fell asleep and slept until morning. Sasuke begins to say and then smiles saying, we've failed to die again. Naruto tries to move a bit but his body won't listen to him and he says in slight frustration, damn it. I still can't move. I was hoping to punch you hard and make you finally open your eyes. Sasuke then laughs for a few seconds and Naruto asks, what is it? We're messed up like this, and you still wanna fight? Sasuke replies with a grin. Naruto quickly replies, damn right. No matter how many times it takes. I admit it. Sasuke interrupts Naruto. I've lost. He admits seemingly glad of the outcome as the sun rises higher. You idiot. Naruto yells at Sasuke who is momentarily shocked as the roles are now switched with Sasuke being the calm one and Naruto the annoyed one. This fight isn't about winning or losing. It's about punching a sulking friend, to make him snap out of it. That's what it's about. The real match I want comes after that dadbao. Hey, Naruto, Sasuke begins to say. What? Naruto replies angrily. I just acknowledged you. Sasuke begins to say as Naruto now looks at him. If I die here, the long cycle of destiny that the Sage of Six Paths mentioned will probably end as well. This is a kind of revolution too. You can release the Mugen Tsukuyomi, Infinite Tsukuyomi, after I'm dead, by transplanting my left eye into Kakashi or someone else. I'll put an end to myself. By dying, Naruto calmly questions. Don't think dying will settle this. If you're willing to die, then live and help me instead. What I want to do is to make all shinobi cooperate with each other. And that definitely includes you. Naruto tells Sasuke this with a slightly louder voice. Just because you want that doesn't mean others will agree to it. Sasuke argues back. Damn it. If you keep whining and sulking, I will slug you again. Naruto argues back. There's no guarantee I won't stand against you again, Sasuke tells Naruto. Then I'll stop you again. Besides, I know you're not going to do that type of thing anymore. Naruto tells Sasuke. How can you be so sure? Sasuke questions. Don't make me repeat myself. Naruto starts telling Sasuke as tears build in Sasuke's eyes. Haven't you figured it out yet? Now that I think about it, you were always pretty stupid too, Naruto finished saying and gets surprised noticing Sasuke's momentary tears. Shut up, Uzuratonkachi, you loser. Sasuke gets the last words in while Naruto just laughs, getting the last laugh before as both of them prepare to fall asleep once more. Getting a better look at the condition these two are in, they are on their backs heavily injured. A line of blood on the side of their mouths from the bottom lip to the bottom of their jaw, multiple beatings almost all over their bodies. Naruto's right arm and Sasuke's left arm are burnt and bleeding, but their index and middle fingers are in the unison sign, and the Konoha Hitai that Naruto was gripping in his left hand had essentially turned to dust. The two shinobi fall asleep a few minutes ago, however unknown to them someone was coming out of the forest. We now find Naruto who is still in his damaged clothes lying on his back on top of water, eyes closed, and breathing slowly as if he was asleep. His eyes then twitch as they slowly open his, and after looking left and right he realizes he is in his mindscape, which was originally a sewer-like structure to being more of a moor in the middle of a lake or ocean. Man, I must be exhausted if I'm back here again. I feel as though I have been going back and forth in this place recently. Naruto comments to himself out loud as he gets up on his feet. Am I glad that the physical pain of the outside world doesn't transfer here, otherwise I would be in tons of pain right now. He says, as he knows things work differently in mind, even if he doesn't completely understand the reasons behind it. Oh, That's right, Naruto begins to realize something important. I need to see how Kurama is doing. He says, knowing that the last time they were in contact Kurama was on the verge of going unconscious, so he goes downward and begins to call his friend. Kurama, Kurama, Kurama. Damn, I know you have to sleep, but at least give me a sign of knowing where you are. Naruto pauses for a moment to make a comment to himself. Kurama. Kura, what the hell, Datbeo? As he calls, Kurama finds him eyes closed, curled around in a ball, dark orange, almost brown colored fur and all. The reason for Naruto's shock, however. Damn it, Naruto, be quiet. Can't you see I am trying to sleep? Kurama, who remains unmoving and eyes closed, tells Naruto in a gruff voice. Are you awake now? Naruto begins to ask. No, I'm not awake yet. Kurama begins to tell Naruto. While I am able to talk to you mentally, my physical form is still in a sleeping state. So talking like this is a bit of a pain. I see. Naruto says. So would you mind explaining what that scream was all about? Kurama asks his partner. Oh right, Kurama, you're huge. Naruto says. If Kurama was able to move his eyes, he would have rolled them. Are you serious right now? Kurama begins to say. I am one the Biju, we are many times bigger than you humans, so of course I am huge. You are really taking this stupidity thing to a new level, you know that, right? Kurama knows Naruto isn't exactly the sharpest kunai out there, but he is starting to question his partner's intelligence with a comment like that. No, that's not what I meant, Naruto begins to say. I mean, you are literally as big as the Hokage rock. Naruto clarifies to the fox as we now see Kurama twice as big as before. Are you certain about this, Naruto? Kurama questions, as he is surprised by this development. Of course I am. Why are you bigger than you are supposed to be? Naruto begins to question Kurama. If what you saying is true, then somehow I am back to my original size. Kurama says. Kushina already told you that when Minato did the sealing, he split my chakra in half for both himself and you, as well as how Minato utilized my chakra during the fight with Obito, remember? Kurama explains. That's right. Naruto says in a slightly sad tone, remembering his parents. Wait a second, if that is the case, then how did you get your original size back? Naruto questions Kurama. You can ask, but I am just as in the dark about this as you are. Kurama says. I guess there is nothing to do about it if we don't know what is going on. Naruto says in conclusion, and he notices his presence fading from this place. Looks like you are starting to wake up, and it also seems someone is healing you. Kurama tells Naruto. I guess Sakura-chan is healing us up. Naruto says. I will see you later, Kurama. Naruto concludes as he disappears from the mindscape. Naruto let out a groan as he started to open his eyes and wake up to see Sasuke, who is still unconscious, but gets a bit surprised that instead of Sakura, who he expected to be healing them, he sees somebody completely different. He sees what he assumes to be a girl about 13 years of age with shoulder-length light brown hair covered by a white coif and emerald green eyes. She wore a black, loose-fitting gown with a white apron over it with sandals. She is also wearing circular glasses that look oddly familiar to him, but he can't quite remember from where. Based on her glowing green hands Shozen Jutsu, mystical palm technique, panting, it seems as though she had been healing him and Sasuke, who is still unconscious, for a few hours at least. She then, when she sees that Naruto is awake, she stops her jutsu, gets water from her equipment pouch, drinks it for a few moments, then puts it away. Good. You are finally awake, said the kind girl that healed him and Sasuke as she gets up. She then asks, who are you and how did you and your friend get in that condition? My name is Naruto. Naruto says as he introduces himself as he sits up. As for me and Sasuke over here, we were having a fight with each other. Replying to her other question. The reply, however, gave the girl a flabbergasted look. Just what kind of fight were you two having? You guys damaged the Valley of the End. Not to mention you two have been unconscious for the last 3 days. The girl said in worry once she calmed down a bit. Naruto then has his own inner thoughts. So we are still at the Valley of the End. At least we know we haven't moved from this location. Then he replies out loud, wait, did you say 3 days? Yes, I did. Why do you ask? She says in a now confused tone. I see. Well, at least the war is over now and we can finally go home. Naruto says in a relieved voice with his eyes closed for a few moments before opening them again. If Naruto had his eyes open, he would have seen the shocked look on the girl's face, which quickly went calm as she then says, I see. Well, your friends should be up in a few minutes, there is also some food and water to your right. I wish you both luck in your travels. She says as she starts to walk away. Wait a second. Naruto calls out as the unknown girl stops for a moment. I forgot to thank you for healing us. What is your name? Nono. My name is Nono Yakushi. The now identified Nono replies. Thanks for healing us, Nono. Naruto says with a smile. Nono now disappears into the forest with the last thoughts in her head. He certainly wears his heart on his sleeve. He doesn't seem like a threat right now, so no need to tell Danzo about this minor setback. Now to begin my mission to spy on Kumogakure no Sato, Hidden Cloud Village. Now as the only conscious person in the area, Naruto begins to see his and Sasuke's conditions. Naruto and Sasuke have bandages on their right and left arms respectively, as well as bandages on their stomach area. Naruto then gets up and walks toward a small lake and confirms that the swellings on his and Sasuke's face are gone. Also, the crazy amount of pain Naruto was in is pretty much gone, leaving only some soreness behind. Naruto begins to think out loud, I should probably wake Sasuke up. So he goes back to Sasuke, crouches and says, wake up already, Sasuke. While lightly slapping his face a few times and then stands back up. Sasuke awakens with a groan, slowly opening his eyes and sitting up to see a surprised look on Naruto's face. What's with the stupid look, Naruto? Sasuke asks Naruto. The Rinnegan in your left eye is gone. Naruto tells Sasuke. What? Sasuke shouts in disbelief, considering he still has vision in both of his eyes. He gets up to go a small lake and confirms that what Naruto said was true, seeing a pair of black eyes in his reflection as well as his wounds have been healed. What the hell is going? Sasuke says in a calm but confused voice. He then walks back to the area Naruto is in with the intent to find out what happened. Naruto, where are we and where is Sakura and Kakashi? Sasuke begins to question. We are still at the Valley of the End, but we were moved to the forest area around it. As for Sakura-chan and Kakashi-sensei, I haven't seen them. Naruto replies. But if that is the case, why are we healed? Sasuke says, getting more confused with each question. Someone else healed us. She seemed like a good person as she took care of us for 3 days. Naruto said. Wait a second. Sasuke said in a voice of realization. If someone you didn't recognize healed us, doesn't that mean the Mugen Tsukuyomi, Infinite Tsukuyomi, has been undone? Sasuke asks Naruto. Naruto then makes a surprised face, as that realization didn't occur to him before now. You're right. Does that mean Sakura-chan and Kakashi-sensei did something while we were unconscious? Naruto begins to question. I guess they did. But that doesn't explain why we are here instead of Konoha. Sasuke says as he begins to think of something. Naruto, did you get the name of the person who healed us by any chance? Sasuke asks. Sure, I did. Her name is. Naruto pauses as if to realize something. Wait a second, she said her name is. Naruto thinks to himself for a moment. Hey Sasuke. Did Kabuto mention anything about having a sister or relative of any kind? Sasuke gains a confused look on his face as Naruto asks that question. No. As far as I know, Kabuto doesn't have any relatives like that. Why did you ask? Because the girl that healed us said her name is Nono Yakushi. Naruto says to Sasuke as he gets a look of slight surprise with this new information. Hey Sasuke, I think now would be a good time to free the Biju before anything else. Naruto tells Sasuke. Fine. Sasuke says as the two get out of the forest, but both individuals get out of the forest they are surprised by their surroundings. What the hell? Naruto and Sasuke both think as they see the condition of the Valley of the End. The area has been damaged greatly and the statues of Madara and Hashirama are cracked in many areas, but overall it looks closer to when they fought 4 years ago rather than being unrecognizable, which was what they were expecting. Also the Biju imprisoned by Sasuke's Chibaku Tensei are missing. Sasuke, what the hell is going on? Naruto begins to question his friend. I don't know, the damage to the valley seems more superficial than I expected. Sasuke says in shock, thinking that the damage to the valley should have been much greater than this. Forget the condition of the valley. Naruto begins to say. Where are Kurama and the others? Naruto asks in almost panic. Sasuke now notices that Naruto was correct when saying that the Biju were gone. What the actual hell is going on here? Sasuke says in an almost stupefied voice. Sasuke. Naruto begins to say before he gets interrupted. I don't know. Sasuke tells Naruto in a yell. Nothing makes sense right now. First Mugen Tsukuyomi, Infinite Tsukuyomi, being undone. Next we have an individual claiming to be Kabuto's relative. Then we have the Valley of the End in a still recognizable condition, and finally the Biju are gone. Sasuke lists the things that have happened so far. I'm going to summon Gamakichi to see how things are at the village. Naruto says as he slams his right hand on the ground, Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning technique. But after a few seconds nothing happens. What the? Naruto says, as this has never happened before. He turns to Sasuke, who also tries to use the Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning technique, with no success either. Something is very wrong here. Sasuke claims, as now he adds no summoning to the list of things that are not right. Hey Sasuke, Orochimaru is alive again, right? Naruto asks Sasuke. He is. Why do you ask? Sasuke replies to Naruto. Is it possible that Orochimaru did something to us while we were unconscious? Naruto begins to ask, slightly worried. Sasuke cups his chin and thinks out loud for a moment. That does sound like something Orochimaru would do, so it is possible. Sasuke says, but the issue with that is that there is no reason for him to do this and he should have no idea we fought or where we are. So what now? Naruto asks Sasuke. I think we should split up. You go back to Konoha while I go explore Orochimaru's hideouts. Sasuke tells Naruto. What? No way. After all that trouble for the past 4 years just to get you to come back to the village and now you want to go off on your own again. No way. Naruto tells Sasuke in disapproval. This will be different. Sasuke begins to tell Naruto. When I left the first time I had no desire to return to the Konoha. Now I will eventually return to the village, but right now there are too many unknowns and unanswered questions. If I can find Orochimaru at one of his hidden hideouts, then I might be able to find out what happened to us. Besides, I am still technically a Rouge ninja, so there are things only I can do in this instance. I see. Naruto says in reluctant agreement. Then we should have a meet-up point like Tanzaku quarters, when we need to meet again. Naruto suggests to Sasuke. Sounds like a plan. Sasuke agrees to Naruto's idea. Then both of their stomachs rumble, as they are now hungry, so they have the food, which is onigiri and water Nono left for them. After they finished lunch they went their separate ways to find the answers to their situation, not knowing what is truly going on. With Naruto, While still traversing the forest, Naruto is about halfway to Konoha, jumping from tree to tree. However, he then becomes aware of the scent of blood below him and goes to investigate. What is this? Naruto asks out loud as H sees the result of what seems like a fight, with what look to be corpses of Konoha and Iwa shinobi. This when he noticed two things. The first is that their Hitai Atesh, forehead protectors, no longer had the kanji for shinobi, ren, on them, but the symbols of each of their separate villages. The second is that the Iowa shinobi's outfits are different. Instead of the red outfits he knew from the war, these shinobi wore flak jackets that are brown in color, with a large zippered pouch over their stomach and a larger, buttoned one over the lower back of the vest. Both pouches are fastened on by a strap over the stomach. These flak jackets have no neck guards, though they do retain shoulder padding held in place by buttons and zippers that go down the middle. What the hell happened here, and why does it look like everyone fought each other when we are supposed to be united? Naruto still questions himself as the amount of questions he has are still increasing since this crazy situation happened. Then suddenly 3 huge rocks about twice his size appeared out of nowhere and almost hit Naruto if he didn't jump out of the way, and it crashes into the ground, causing dust to appear for a few moments. Who is there? Show yourselves. Naruto commands against his unknown attackers. Then a group of 10 Iowa shinobi, kunoichi 7 males 3 females in those brown flank jackets surrounded the area around him, 5 in the trees and 5 on the ground. What are you all doing? Obviously we are here to kill Konoha shinobi. The short brown-haired kunoichi number 1 said, taking out a kunai. Why are you all doing this? The war is already over, there is no reason to fight each other. Naruto asks, as he doesn't understand what is going on. The Iowa shinobi and kunoichi then look at Naruto with shock and disbelief for a moment before laughing like they heard the funniest thing in the world. Naruto starts to get annoyed by this and shouts, "What's so damn funny?" Then an Iowa shinobi who seemed like the leader stopped laughing. He is bald, had a muscled physique with multiple scars on his face and arms. Man, you're so stupid that it's funny. Naruto begins to grip his fists in frustration. You are a lot different than I thought you would be. It must have been either dumb luck or the people we sent before were incompetent if they were all killed by you. Naruto wanted to tell this guy to shut up and then kick his, but what he said confused him enough to lower his anger a bit. What are you talking about? The leader continued by saying, that's enough chit-chat. Once we kill you we will be legends. Prepare to die, Konoha no Kiroi Senko, Konoha's yellow flash. The scarred shinobi said as everyone from Iowa made a few hand signs that ended with the snake hand sign and said, Doden, Dosekadake, earth release, earth and stone bamboo shoot. The fu. Naruto didn't even finish his thought of disbelief as his instincts took over and jumped into the and landed on an open tree to see the soil and rocks in the area he was standing in before sprouting out in the form of about 40 large spikes multiple directions that almost skewer him if he didn't jump up as fast as he did. That was way too close for my liking. Naruto thought, relief. At least you are pretty fast, or else this wouldn't be worth as much. The scarred leader said as all the Iowa shinobis, kunoichis, take out a kunai and jump toward Naruto. Okay, they won't listen. So fight first, ask questions later. Naruto thinks as he makes his infamous cross-fingered hand sign for his jutsu, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique. Naruto said, as 7 more clones of himself appeared to with 7 of his opponents for to relocate the fight, while he deals with the remaining 3 opponents. Then Iowa males number 1 and number 2 charge at Naruto, trying to cut him with their kunai, slashing in multiple directions, but Naruto is just moving too fast for them. Naruto just keeps dodging them, and then he grabs their arms and slams their faces into each other while trying to be as non-lethal as possible. The 2 Iowa shinobi then jump back to their leader's side. So what is next, boss? Iowa male number 1 asks the leader. He is faster than I thought he is, Though I guess that is to be expected against someone like him. I guess it is time for that strategy. The scarred thinks. He puts his right hand behind his back to cross his index and middle fingers. I guess it has come to that. Both Iowa males number 1 and number 2 think as they execute the plan. Doden. Doryuheiki Earth Release. Earth Style Wall. Male number 2 says after he makes the tiger right pointing arrow hare right pointing arrow boar right pointing arrow dog hand signs to create a condensed stone wall to tall enough to block Naruto's vision. What now? Naruto thinks out loud. As the stone wall collapses to have 5 wolves and Iowa male number 2 charge at Naruto as he creates 5 more clones to deal the current situation, and it became a one-sided beatdown as the wolves were just punched and kicked out of existence and Iowa male number 2 got punched into the ground close to the collapsed stone wall. Naruto now looks towards the scarred leader. This is starting to get annoying. Naruto says to him, "When will you stop this madness?" Naruto asks the now smirking scarred leader, "Wait a second. Where is the other guy?" Naruto thinks as he feels something grab his ankles and looks down to see hands of Iowa male number 1 griping them, and then Iowa male number 2 gets up to grab Naruto's arms and hold him in position. "Do it now." Iowa male number 2 shouts to the scarred leader. The scarred leader then makes the bird hand sign and says, "Doden. Doryuso Earth Release. Earth Flow Spears." Using the stone from the earth wall to create 4 spikes that have now skewered both Iowa male number 2 and Naruto. Afterwards Iowa male number 1 got out of the ground back to his leader's side as Naruto's clones disappeared. The scarred leader smirks at his accomplishment. "I got him. The flash is duh." The scarred leader's celebration was cut short as Naruto poofs out of existence, showing that he skewered a clone instead of the original. The fool must have lost track of the original during the clash. The scarred leader and Iowa male number 1 then froze in their tracks as they felt an almost overwhelming Sasuke, killing intent, as they turned to see Naruto a few feet behind them with a less merciful mood. "How could you do that to your comrade?" Naruto asks in a growled voice. "I can take this mysterious situation, I can take people attacking me for no reason, but I cannot and will not forgive anyone who treats their comrades like sacrificial pawns." Naruto continues to say, "I am done playing Mr. Nice Guy." Naruto says in resolve as cracks his fists. "I'm getting out of here." Iowa male number 1 said loudly and quickly runs away into the forest as he starts to feel fear. He does manage to get a good amount of distance away from the now murderous Naruto, as he can no longer be seen in the area of the fight. "Coward," the Iowa leader said, "I guess it's all up to me to kill you." He charges at Naruto making the hand signs ram right pointing arrow dog right pointing arrow rat right pointing arrow snake right pointing arrow tiger for his final jutsu, thinking he can overpower the blonde. Doden. Kengan no Jutsu Earth Release. Fist rock technique, he says as his left arm is encased in rock, intending to deal a powerful hardened punch against an opponent while being protected from direct contact with their target. Die. The leader screamed. Naruto now creates a Rasengan with one hand and charges toward the Iowa leader as each gets closer to each other. Time seems to slow down a bit as Naruto quickly and subtly ducks under the fist to get to the opponent. "Oh shit," was the Iowa leader's last thought before getting hit. Rasengan. Naruto shouts once he felt his jutsu make contact. Due to the power of the jutsu, the Iowa leader spins out of control and smashes into a few trees before falling on the ground, losing consciousness with a spiral-like injury the abdomen area and getting the feedback of his clones defeating the rest of the opponents, signaling the end of this confrontation. However, Naruto could only sigh at the aftermath, still not knowing what is going on, and begins to talk out loud. "Okay, so what is next? Even if I wake these guys up, I have a feeling they won't tell me what I want to know. But still, why did they call me the Kiroi Senko, Yellow Flash? I mean, I know I look like my dad, but he has been dead for 17 years not counting the temporary revival, so why? Naruto scratches the top of his head in frustration due to having more questions than answers. Staying here questioning myself is not doing anything for me, so going back to Konoha is the best option. Perhaps Tsunade Bakken will have some answers. Alright, that is what I will do. Looks like I finally caught up to you. An unfamiliar kind voice spoke behind Naruto. He turns to see the owner of the voice. The owner was a fair-skinned young woman around his age. She looked to be about 5'4" in with a lean figure that most kunoichi have, and her bust looked about the same size as his friend Hinata. She has long, straight black hair reaching down to the middle of her back with bangs hanging on either side of her face to roughly frame her cheeks and black eyes. She is wearing a short version of a dark blue and black cheongsam that is decorated with mesh on her chest area, left arm, and right thigh, each held up by a choker. Underneath the dress, she dons on a pair of shorts that is comfortable and easy to move around in. She also has navy blue thigh-high socks that disappear over the occasional ninja sandals, arm-length gloves and a headband that is tied around her waist and a katana strapped to her back. Overall, Naruto thought she is an attractive-looking girl, and upon seeing the headband on her waist, instantly recognizing her as a Konoha kunoichi, he thinks things are looking up. I'm finally catching a break here. You're as fast as ever, am I? The girl pauses what she says as she takes a second look at the person in front of her. While the young man in front of her looks practically identical to her old teammate, there were a few differences. He was shorter, his face was a bit rounder, and his cheeks had whisker marks. Her eyes harden as she gets into a battle stance and her right hand grabs the handle of her katana. Who are you and why are you here? She asks with the kindness in her voice disappearing, preparing to engage a potential enemy as she has Kumo Shinobi, kunoichi with similar hair and eye color in the past. Oh come on. Why does this keep happening, and how does she not know who I am? Naruto thinks in frustration as this unusual situation is making things even more complex. Now, somewhat panicked, he slowly raises both his hands up to show that he is not hostile. Take it easy, I don't want to fight. Please let's just talk for a few minutes, I want answers just as much as you do. Naruto says as a somewhat pleading voice, knowing that one wrong move can lead to disaster. The black-haired girl looks at the blonde male and can tell that he at the very least is not hostile. She then removes her hand from her katana, gets out of her battle stance. Okay, let's talk, she says with a stern kind voice, signaling that while she doesn't trust him, she will at least hear him out. For starters, what is your name? Naruto. He replies to the girl, thanking his luck that he can at least talk now. Why are here in the first place? My friend and I had a fight at the Valley of the End. Why were you two fighting? She gets a bit intrigued on that little detail. We had a disagreement on an ideal. I wonder what that is all about. The girl begins to think, but then corrects herself. That information isn't relevant right now. She now decides to ask the most important questions. Are you a shinobi? Yes. Naruto replies. What village are you from? Konoha. The girl then narrows her eye a bit. However, she is also confused because as far as she can tell he is telling the truth, but she knows for a fact that she doesn't recognize him at all. Can you prove it? Where is your Hittite? Naruto worried a bit when he saw her eyes narrow, but when she asked the question he thought he was in the clear. Sure, it's right here, Naruto says, but slows down, as he doesn't feel the Hittite on his head where it is supposed to be. No, 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 no. Naruto says in absolute panic as he empties his front and back pockets to find nothing. How did this? His eyes widen in realization, it must have gotten destroyed during the fight, damn it. Naruto shouts at the end and hits the ground, getting a bit teary-eyed as the Hittite Iruka-sensei gave him was gone for good and now he can't the black-haired girl any proof of his affiliation. The girl's eyes soften as she looks on as the boy in front of her was going through an emotional crisis. Under normal circumstances this would give me every reason to either kill him or take him to the Konoha torture and interrogation force for further questioning. But his actions are completely honest. Maybe I should try to dig a bit deeper before I make any judgments. The girl decides to give him another chance to speak more. Hey Naruto. The girl says in a calm and kind voice that gets him to look at her again. Let's talk a bit more. Is that alright? Naruto now looks more hopeful now. He calms down and whips the tears from his eyes and he says, yes. As he stands back, there are some unconscious Iwa ninja around here along with some corpses from both Iwa and Konoha. Do you know why that is? The girl questions again. The corpses, I have no idea, they were like that when I got here, except for one where the leader sacrificed one of his comrades to try and kill me. The rest are the result of them attacking me. Naruto still feels angry with that. The girl is starting to get a clearer picture of what happened here. So it confirms to her that Naruto is a strong shinobi if he was able to take on multiple ninjas at once and that he values bonds with comrades. Why did they attack you with the intent to kill? They thought I was someone else. So they attacked me and I defended myself. Naruto replied. I see. The girl says, as she understands what is going on. The Iwa ninjas made the mistake she almost did when she thought that Naruto was her old teammate. What is your plan now? The girl asks. I plan to go back to Konoha to get some answers. But I guess I can't just walk through the gates, can I? Naruto replies. Not alone you can't. The girl replies with a smirk, but if you were escorted by a few Konoha ninjas then it would be a different story. Naruto then gets a surprised look. Do you mean that you will help me? You seem like a really genuine person, so I will try to convince my comrades to help me escort you to the Hokage. How does that sound? Naruto could only smile. That sounds great. But then he stops smiling for a moment, but there is village security involved. How do you plan to convince them? Naruto asks with uncertainty. I have one idea. But can you tell me if you have any family at all? The girl asks. Naruto then gets a sad look in his eyes. My parents have been dead for a long time now. Naruto replies. I'm sorry for your loss. The girl says. But the reason I asked is because you look very similar to my old teammate. That little bit of information made Naruto very interested. Really? How so? He asked. Honestly, you look nearly identical to him. Heck, if I didn't see your face then I would have though you were him. She replies. Seriously. This surprises Naruto. Yes. In fact it gave me the idea to say that you might be his long-lost cousin or something. The girl said. I see. But is that really okay? Naruto asks. I mean pretending to be a long-lost family member just seems wrong. Naruto voices his concerns about. The black-haired girl could only smile at his honesty. You are a strange shinobi, you know that. She says as Naruto raises an eyebrow. You are very expressive, it's almost hard to believe you are one. Hey, don't insult me, Naruto says. The girl giggles a bit and says, sorry. I didn't mean it as an insult, it's just you kind of remind me of my best friend. She is very expressive to the point of having a verbal tic. But she is a strong kunoichi and I trust her a lot. She sounds like a great person, I wonder if we will meet at some point. Naruto says. Probably in a few minutes. Do you still have a question? She tells him. What were you doing out here anyway? Naruto asked her. A few days ago near the Valley of the End sensors picked up a massive chakra signature like nothing we have ever seen before, so me and my comrades were sent to evaluate the potential threat but nothing was there. She then notices Naruto looked a bit sheepish and rubbing the back of his head. Do you know about it, Naruto? She asked. Actually, the chakra signature you mentioned was most likely the result of me and my friend fighting. Naruto replies as the girl looks shocked. Are you serious? The girl asks in disbelief in how strong Naruto might actually be. Yep, was all Naruto could say. If that is true, then there is someone just as strong as Naruto who is unchecked. She thinks worriedly. Where is your friend now? She asks in a bit of a worried tone. Naruto notices her tone and says, don't worry about him. He isn't the type to pick fights for no reason. If you say so, Naruto. She says in a calm tone, feeling more at ease. All right, time to get my comrades. She now turns away from Naruto, heading toward a nearby tree, and she begins to take something out of her pocket. Then Naruto realizes something important he forgot to ask. Wait a second, what's your name? Naruto asks as she turns her head towards him. The wind begins to blow and it moves, her hair moves with it, and as a result Naruto sees something that he can't believe on the back of her dress as the symbol for Uchiha clan. My name is Makoto, Makoto Uchiha. Naruto could only stay in silence, thinking that this is impossible. This girl Makoto was a member of Sasuke's clan, which got massacred by Itachi, and as a result of the war Sasuke was supposed to be the last Uchiha. So now the question still remains, what the actually hell is going on? Naruto thinks in his head, and then he looks at the familiar three-bladed kunai in Makoto's hand, which surprises Naruto even further. Is that what I think it is? He thinks as Makoto stabs the kunai into the tree, and then two people appear out of nowhere. Two people who he didn't think he would ever see again. Makoto then smiles and says, hello Minato and Kushina, we need to talk about something important. With eyes widened, Naruto couldn't believe what he was seeing. This should be impossible. The one of the many things he is thinking about, with this whole situation turning into a huge WTF is going on kind of trend of things that shouldn't be happening. The Biju disappear, getting healed by a possible relative of Kabuto, the ninja of the nations no longer being united and killing each other, being mistaken for his father on 2 occasions, and meeting Makoto, who just happened to be a part of the Uchiha clan that was supposed to have only have Sasuke as the last surviving member. Now a whole new thing, or rather 2 things, just literally appeared out of nowhere. His parents that were supposed to be dead, his father Minato Namikaze and his mother Kushina Uzumaki. Just like Naruto, Minato has blue eyes and spiky, blonde hair. Though Minato also had jaw-length bangs framing either side of his face. His attire consisted of a standard Konoha uniform with 2 bands on both of his sleeves, a green flak jacket, blue forehead protector, and blue sandals. However, Naruto noticed that Minato was missing the Hokage Haori. Kushina was a fair-skinned young woman that has violet eyes, and waist-length red hair, that is her hair tied up in a high ponytail with shoulder-length strands that framed both sides of her face. Her attire consisted of a standard Konoha flak jacket over a black short-sleeved shirt and black form-fitting pants that reached her calves. She also had a slender, but feminine build similar to his friend Ino. However, Naruto noticed something different about his parents. They looked younger than they were supposed to. When Naruto met them before in his seal, they looked to be in their mid-20s, with Minato being 5ft11 in and Kushina being 5ft5 in. Now they both look like they same age as him, with Minato being 5ft6 in and Kushina being 5ft2 in. Originally Naruto thought this might have been some weird trick Orochimaru did while he and Sasuke were unconscious, but even if that were the case, why would he do something like this, and why would he give his parents the wrong ages? So now that idea is no longer good, he began to think on what is actually going on. His ideas included genjutsu, a dream, or that he is actually dead. But all of those ideas don't fit at all. Then something just clicked with him. Is it possible, a new possibility that didn't occur before now made itself known, that somehow our combined jutsus have thrown us into the past? As ridiculous as it sounds, it is the only idea that makes any actual sense. With this new information, Naruto wonders what he should do. Sure, going back to Konoha is a good start, but after that he honestly isn't sure what to do after that. Overall, Naruto is feeling very overwhelmed, and it is taking everything he has to not hug his parents now to avoid making things awkward. Speaking of which, it looks like Makoto has finished catching up Minato and Kushina on the situation and the idea that he is Minato's long-lost cousin. So that's the story of how I found your long-lost cousin Minato. Makoto finished telling both Minato and Kushina as they only look on in shock on what they have just heard. You don't say, says Kushina as she gets a second look at Naruto, and she can clearly see the similarities between Naruto and Minato. She turns to Minato and smiles at him. This is great, Minato, you have another family member, Databane. She says excitedly as she is so happy for Minato that her verbal tick came out. Yeah, it is, says Minato. He is happy to hear that he has a relative, but he is still in a bit of a shock to learning this. I think we should introduce ourselves now, Minato says as both he and Kushina walk towards Naruto and stop about 2 or 3 feet away from him. Hello, my name is Minato Namikaze, and from what Makoto has told me, you are most likely my cousin. Minato says as he extends his hand. It's nice to meet you, he says with a smile. It's nice to meet you too, Minato, I'm Naruto, he says as he extends his hand to accept the handshake with Minato. Then Kushina comes in and grabs both their hands in the handshake. And I'm Kushina Uzumaki, Minato's girlfriend Databane. It's nice to meet you, Naruto Namikaze, Kushina says, adding Minato's last name to Naruto as she figures since they are related, why not? It's nice to meet you too, Kushina, Naruto says as naturally as he can. Then Kushina lets go of their hands. So what's next, Minato, Makoto? Kushina asks her comrades. Well, if Makoto's information is correct, then the mission is done now, and best thing to do is to head back to the village, Minato says in a professional voice as he is in mission mode. I agree, let's head back, it's starting to get late, Makoto says as she looks up to see the position of the sun looking to be about 5 p.m. Always confidant with those eyes of yours, Makoto, Kushina says in a bit of a deadpan voice, knowing that Makoto likes to show off sometimes. Makoto smirks as she quickly activated her Sharingan, which confirms to Naruto that Makoto really is a member of the Uchiha clan. Of course, I have the best vision between the three of us after all, Makoto says in a teasing manner to her best female friend as she deactivated her Sharingan. Take it easy, you two, Minato says as he gets between them, as they sometimes like to get into spats. You can always do this in the village. Okay, Makoto and Kushina both say. Good, Minato says as he looks towards Kushina, Makoto, and Naruto. Now, everyone grab on, Minato tells the group. Kushina grabs his left arm and hand, Makoto grabs Minato's hand, while Naruto looks confused. What are you waiting for, Naruto? Minato asks. He obviously doesn't understand what you mean, Minato. Makoto berates her old teammate before looking back at Naruto. Naruto, if you grab onto Minato's shoulder, his jutsu will take us to the village gates in an instant. Makoto informs Naruto of Minato's intentions. Okay, thanks for telling me, Naruto says. Though he already knew how his father's Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, worked, as he had seen it used by both Minato and the second Hokage plenty of times. But he had to pretend to be oblivious so he doesn't look suspicious. Now he grabs onto Minato's shoulder and they all teleport out of the area. Konoha. Arriving at the village in an instant was defiantly a blessing for Naruto, as it saved a lot of time he would have wasted traveling through the forest. We are here, says Minato as everybody let go of him. I am going to clear everything with the guards. Please wait a bit, he tells the group as he goes to talk to the guards. Welcome back to Konoha Naruto. Makoto says to him. So what do you think? It looks great, Naruto says, and it truly did look great to him. Through the gates he see the village was repaired, or to be more accurate what it was in the condition before Obito took control of Kurama and made him rampage on the day he was born. However, the biggest difference he could see right now is the Hokage rock, which has the faces of the first Hokage to the current Hokage. Except this time it only has 3 faces on it, the first, second and third Hokages, which further reminds him of his situation. I really am in the past, aren't I? Naruto thinks sadly, realizing that all his friends aside from Sasuke are gone and have been basically unborn. He then turns to see Minato come back to them. Alright, everything seems to be in order, Minato says to the group. Now we need to give our report to the Hokage. Needless to say, you should probably come along with us, Naruto. Minato continues saying. Right. Naruto, Makoto, and Kushina replied. As they travel to the Hokage's office, Naruto looks at his surroundings. To his surprise and relief, he currently doesn't see anything different of the past Konoha compared to the Konoha he remembers from his childhood. At least I am familiar with the area. So that's one less thing to worry about, Naruto thinks as they made it the iconic Hokage's tower that has the kanji for fire on it. The group goes inside. They get past the check desk and goes up a flight of stairs leading to the door that opens to the Hokage's office. Once inside, Naruto sees another person he didn't think he would see again, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. The person who was basically his grandfather figure when he was younger and doing so much for him, like giving him an apartment to stay in. However, just like his parents, the third Hokage was also much younger, but unlike his parents who didn't change all that much, the third Hokage almost looked like a completely different person. The Hokage he remembered was an old man in his late 60s, almost going on 70 if his memory was accurate. This version of the third Hokage was a younger but still old adult that looked to be in his late 40s. He was tan-skinned and had spiked dark brown hair, a small goatee, and he had 2 lines running vertically under the outer corners of each eye, which stretched down into his face as he aged until they reached his cheeks. To Naruto, though, the thing that was most different about the third Hokage was the look in his eyes. The eyes he remembered were kinder and more understanding. These eyes were sharper and more judgmental. This makes sense to Naruto, as once he accepted he was in the past, he guessed he was somewhere during the era of the Third Shinobi World War. So it's only natural that the third Hokage would be more on guard, but that didn't make Naruto feel any more comfortable in this situation. Welcome back, Minato, Kushina, and Makoto, the third Hokage began to say. How did the mission go, and who is this young man who looks like Minato? He asked the 3 ninja under his command, and they each gave him a report from getting to the forest to meeting Naruto and introducing him as Minato's long-lost cousin. I see, said the Hokage as he looks towards Naruto, giving him his full attention. So you are Minato's cousin Naruto Namikaze, correct? Yes, I believe I am, Naruto replies, knowing he has to answer each question with care, as if he messes up even once in this questioning, it's all over for him. He is being judged. Makoto mentioned you took down a squad of Iwa shinobi before she got there, is that correct? That is correct. That tells me you have been trained to be a shinobi. Who taught you? My guardian, who was a shinobi, taught me almost everything I know before he died in a battle, Naruto says with a sad look, remembering Jiraiya's death. I see, the Hokage began. So what do you plan to do here? While you do look to have the credentials to be Minato's cousin, it seems suspicious that you would suddenly appear now out of nowhere, and as a shinobi no less. Honestly, I'm not too sure yet, Naruto replies. I was honestly hoping to stay in the village and get closer to a member of my family. For Naruto, this is true. While he did complete his original goal of wanting to get some answers by returning to Konoha, there was this part of him that still wanted to be near his family he didn't get the chance to meet until recently. I understand the situation, Hiruzen began. However, even if you are Minato's cousin as the Hokage, I can't simply allow an unknown shinobi to stay in the village without supervision. So what are you suggesting then, Hokage-sama? Naruto asks as respectfully as possible. You will become an official shinobi for Konoha under my command and protect this village with your life on the line. You will have Minato, Kushina, and/or Makoto looking over you for the duration of your stay as well as on missions. You must also abide by the laws of this village, and should you give us any reason that you are an enemy spy, then you will be punished accordingly. These are the terms I am giving you. Are these terms acceptable to you? Naruto thinks for a second and replies, I believe that these terms are acceptable. Hiruzen looks over to Minato, Makoto and Kushina. Do you three accept this assignment? He asks them. Yes, 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 said the three ninjas. All right, Hiruzen started to say. However, despite you being able to defeat Iowa shinobis, we still need a solid grasp on your skill level to effectively rank you. So you will be given a sparring opponent between tomorrow and the next day that will be observed. I understand, Naruto replies. Very well, you are all dismissed, Hiruzen says as the group of four leaves his office. Naruto Namikaze, I wonder what you will show us. As the group exits the Hokage Tower, they notice the sun has begun to set and it is now an orange color. Naruto finds a bench to sit down on and grabs his chest, letting out a couple of deep breaths. While the others look at him in worried. Are you okay, Naruto? Kushina asks in a worried tone. I'm not sure. I felt as if I was in the middle of a fire and I just barely made it out. Naruto says in a voice that is short of breath and trying to calm his nerves. It makes sense, says Minato. We are in the middle of a war, so most of the time unknown elements are treated as potentially dangerous threats to the village. Great, so I basically have a target on my back, Naruto says in an annoyed voice. Well, I think that you handled that well, Naruto, Makoto says to Naruto in a kind voice. You said everything you could, so now you relax. You still have tomorrow or the next day to get ready. Okay, Naruto says in a calmer voice now. So what's next? He asks his group of observers. Just as they were about to say something, the group hears a rumbling sound coming from each of them. They blush and then laugh it off. I guess that settles it, Minato says. We should get some dinner. Before Minato can say anything else, Kushina interrupts him. I know a place we can go, Databane, Kushina says in excitement as she rushes ahead of the others. Come on, you guys, Kushina calls out to them. They all can only smile as Kushina's energetic side, and they follow her around the village. While Kushina was leading the way, Naruto was getting a sense of nostalgia, feeling that this road is familiar to him somehow, but is unsure at the moment until his nose twitched and smelled a familiar aroma. Wait, is she taking us to that place? Naruto thinks, and they almost arrive at Ramen Ichiraku, the ramen bar, looking just as he remembered it in his childhood. That is Ramen Ichiraku, the best ramen shop in Konoha, Databane, says Kushina, glad to eat at her favorite restaurant. Of course you would want to go there, you ramen addict, Makoto says with a smirk and a teasing tone. Kushina gives a light glare to her best friend. Don't diss the ramen. You make it sound like having it is a bad thing, she tells her friend. I never said that it was bad, Kushina, Makoto tells her. But you go here multiple times almost every day when you are not on missions. It's not good for you to have so much ramen so frequently, Makoto tells her. At this rate you will still stay the same height, Makoto teases Kushina again. Kushina's face goes red as her hair starts to stand up. Why you? She was about to say something but she got interrupted. Alright girls, let's calm down now. We're here to eat dinner, not here to cause a scene. Minato says as the mediator between him, Kushina, and Makoto. The girls calmed down and said, okay. Minato then turns to Naruto. Sorry about this, Naruto. You are a guest and we didn't even ask what you wanted to eat. I hope you don't mind ramen. After hearing this, Kushina got a bit of a guilty look, realizing she was unintentionally forcing her tastes on a newcomer. It's fine. Ramen is one of my favorite things to eat. Naruto says to assure them, plus he didn't like his mom looking guilty like that. So with that they enter the ramen bar. He see two people, one of them being a younger looking Tsuki, possibly in his mid-20s, wearing his typical cooking appearance. However, he is confused about the other person, who is a female. She is a slender girl with long, dark brown hair in a side ponytail and large black eyes, plus fair skin. She wears a white robe with the sleeves folded, a sort of dark blue apron with ribbon ties at the top. She kind of looks like a Yame but a bit older. Ah, Minato and Kushina, welcome back, says Tsuki. Oh, Makoto, it's been a while, says the unknown female. Tsuki then looks at Naruto in surprise. I didn't know you had a brother, Minato. Cousin, actually his name is Naruto. Minato says to Tsuki and then turns to Naruto. Naruto, this Tsuki, the owner of this establishment, and his wife Hiromi. Nice to meet you. Also interesting name you have there, says Tsuki looking at Naruto. It's nice to meet, Naruto, says the now identified Hiromi. It's nice to meet you too as well, Naruto says to the couple. So that's Ayame's mom and Tsuki's wife. I wonder why I never meet her when I was younger. Naruto thinks to himself for a moment. So, what can I get for you for tonight? Tsuki asks the four customers. I will have shio, salt ramen, says Kushina. I will have shoyu, soy sauce ramen, says Minato. I will have miso ramen, says Makoto. I will have miso ramen, says Naruto. Once the four order, they decide to have some small talk. So how long have you three been teammates for? Naruto asks the group. Kushina pouts a bit while Makoto giggles and Minato rubs the back of his head. Naruto can only raise an eyebrow in confusion. I think you have misunderstanding. Makoto begins to tell Naruto. Between the three of us, only Minato and I were teammates. Kushina was on another squad. You got lucky with the team assignments, Kushina says, still pouting. For members of different teams, you seem to work well together. Naruto says. That's because we have been friends since our time at the academy. Minato begins to say. We have trained together a lot, so we know our strengths and weaknesses. I would trust them with my life anytime. Minato finishes with a smile. This causes the girls of the group to smile as Kushina. This causes Naruto to ask more. What were your other teammates and senseis like? Naruto had to ask, but then they all get a bit silent. Did I say something wrong? Naruto asks in worry. War has done a lot of damage to the people we care about. Makoto begins to say in a sad tone. Minato and I had a third teammate, his name was Kota Akamichi. He was a good friend of ours and even became Chunin together. But during a mission he was assigned to, he meet the wrong opponent and died as a result. Makoto and I were on other missions when this happened, so we couldn't arrive to help him. Minato cuts in. That's one of the reason I created my version of the Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, so that I would always be able to act to same my comrades. Minato says. This is something Naruto was surprised about. But then again, the first time he meet his father was when he was in the battle against Pain Nagato, when he reached the 8th tail and was on the verge of releasing the hate-filled Kurama, while the second time was during the battle between the allied shinobi forces against Madara, Obito, and the Jubi. While he understood the kind of person his father was, Naruto didn't actually know Minato or his struggles in life before becoming the 4th Hokage. So this was a real eye-opener for him. He then turns to Kushina and she notices. As for me, my teammates are still around, but my sensei on the other hand has been out of commission for a long time. Kushina says. What do you mean by out of commission? Naruto asks. My sensei is still alive and she was a great kunoichi, but she has been removed from active duty for a long. What happened to her? Naruto asks. It happened during the Second Shinobi World War. She lost someone important and as a result she developed hemophobia or a fear of blood. Kushina tells him. To Naruto, however, this sounds very familiar as he remembers Tsunade also having that problem as well. Wait a second. Is it possible that Mom's sensei was Naruto though as the ramen was finally delivered? Finally time to eat. Kushina says as all four people say, Itadakimasu, as they begin eating. Naruto enjoys the ramen as usual, bringing forth some nostalgia, as it has been a long time since he had his favorite ramen. But slows down after looking at Minato and Kushina smiling at each other. Eating dinner with his parents next to him like this feels very surreal and it makes him imagine what could have been if his parents lived after Obito took control of Kurama and forced him to attack the village. He could clearly see a younger version of himself with his parents eating at Ichiraku and the thought of this makes his eyes water a bit. The other three notice this. Hey Naruto, are you okay? You look like you're starting to cry. Makoto asks Naruto. Is the ramen not to your liking? Kushina also asks. You can tell us if anything is wrong. Minato says to Naruto. I'm okay. Naruto replies as he is rubbing his eyes. The ramen is great too. It's just that, eating dinner with a relative is something that I haven't experienced before. It's a real adjustment for me. Minato then puts his right hand on Naruto's left shoulder as he begins to speak. I know this isn't easy for you. Heck, I'm still adjusting myself. But don't we will both get used to it in no time. Minato says to Naruto as he removes his hand. Naruto can only nod and smile and replies. Thanks Minato, I needed that. Before everyone went back to their ramen. Minato and Makoto had 2 bowls of ramen while Naruto and Kushina had 4 bowls of ramen. Wow. Never thought I would meet someone who shares the same appetite for ramen as Kushina. Makoto says. Minato just laughs as he goes through his wallet for money. But Yuki and Hiromi said that since it was a special occasion the meal is on them. So the 4 shinobi kunoichi said their thanks and leave the ramen bar and notice it was dark out. Well, that was a good meal. Well, I better be getting back home now. I will see you all tomorrow. Makoto says before she disappears with a Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker technique. Well, it's time head back and show your new home Naruto. Minato says with a smile. While Naruto can only grin as it feels like the fantasy deep in his mind is becoming reality and the group walks to the home of Minato and Kushina. However, Naruto had on last thought. I hope Sasuke is alright and figures out we are in the past. With Sasuke. While Naruto got all of his answers, Sasuke spent the whole day trying to find Orochimaru's base, but he was getting nowhere in his search. He is getting hungry and frustrated. Damn it. Sasuke yells after hitting a tree, I have been searching for a whole day, where the hell is that base? Sasuke questions himself. Unfortunately for the Uchiha, the base he is looking for doesn't exist yet, not that he would know that at this time. Screw this, I'm getting dinner. Sasuke says as he travel through the land of sound, not knowing it's called the land of rice fields, and eventually finds a pub. He was lucky he was able to order omusubi with okaka and tomatoes, but he still has no clue on what is going on with this situation, as he should have been recognizable to these people since he was with Orochimaru. He finished his dinner and paid for it, getting ready to head out until he heard it. Some random guys were talking about how they wanted the Third Shinobi World War to end. To Sasuke, he thought this guy was crazy, but then he thinks about it. If what that guy said was true, then it makes sense that Orochimaru's base isn't here yet. Holy hell, me and Naruto, or in the past I have to speed things up to make sure neither Naruto or myself do anything crazy. Sasuke thinks as he moves forward, not realizing things are already starting to change.